start from the very beginning, and we will try to get as far as we possibly can. Let's have a look at the Mishnayos and the last Perek of Masechet Shviyos. Shviyos Perek Yud. And we will go through Mishnah, first few Mishnayos, starting out with, we start even earlier with the Chumash. Meketche v'shtonim tase shmito. Zeh dvar hashmito shomet kol bar mashiyot. So we already discussed Shemitah's Chsofim in a previous year. And as we could imagine, in Toras Moshe, there's no mention of PRUZBUL because PRUZBUL is a Tikkun of HaLACHA. So we immediately go to the Mishnayos. Perek Yud, Masechet Shviyos. Masechet Shviyos has 10 parakim. The first 9 deal with Shmitas Kakois, the various different halachas. From Isser Avodas Oretz v'Avodas Yolonos to Kedusha Shviyos and Peiros. The last Perek is dedicated to Shmitas Chsofim. Could we have it on our screen? The Mishnayos.
It's coming up, Rebbe.
Hello? You hear me?
We hear you. Which mission does the Rav need? We have Perek Yud. Which Mishnah?
Here we are. So the first Mishnah just talks about Shemitah's Chsofim. What is Nishmat, what is not. We will go through Beis, Gimel, Dalet. Kol Masa Beis Din Mishamten, Amal Valamaskin, Vamoisu Shtoroisav LeBeis Din. Einan Mishamten. So Mishnah Beis talks about Amoisu Shtoroisav LeBeis Din. Mishnah Gimel. PRUZBUL Eina Mishamet Zechud Men Adburim Sheitkin Ila Rasot Kisharo Shenim Noam El Harbe Sese. V'yoyverim al Mashekosa B'Torah Shom L'Chop Ben Yedaverim Levavchu B'Lial. Hitkin Hilal PRUZBUL. Mishnah Dalet goes on to explain what is the PRUZBUL. Zeh Gufo Shel PRUZBUL Moiser Ani Lochem Ish Ploini V'Ploini Ad Yonim Shebamukam Ploini Shekol Choiv Sheyesh Li שהגבנו כל זמן שארצה, בדיונים חויסמם למטו או העדם. So the Mishnah describes what is a PRUZBUL, but the Mishnah does not explain what's behind the words. What is behind the words? Let's have a look at Rashi and Makis Daf Gimel. Most of the halachas of PRUZBUL are in Masechet Gittin. Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin, because we don't have Gemara and Masechet Shviyos. So the dinam of PRUZBUL are in Masechet Gittin on one hand, Masechet Makis on the other hand. So I think Rashi, both in Makis and in Gittin.
Gimel, Pesach, Gimel, not Yud Gimel, Gimel.
Gimel, Makis Daf Gimel. Rashi says, what is PRUZBUL? PRUZBUL is Moisa Shtoroisav LeBeis Din. So Rashi seems to say that PRUZBUL and Moisa Shtoroisav LeBeis Din are
Amid Beis.
One and the same. And Tosfos disagrees. Okay. Rashi, Moisa Shtoroisav LeBeis Din, who PRUZBUL? Shehitkin Hillel, Shekosav Voy Meslani Lechem Ploini Veploini Ad Yonam Shebamokam Ploini. Tosfos on the spot. Moisa Shtoroisav LeBeis Din Pesha Kunt Esaino PRUZBUL. Belonir A. Tu b'Masechet Shviyos Tonei Moisa Shtoroisav LeBeis Din V'Oda Katona PRUZBUL Eina Mishamet Al Mitrei Mileninu. Lekach Nere de Trei Mileninu V'Moisa Shtoroisav LeBeis Din Mediuraisa Eina Mishamet. But Tosfos doesn't explain, so what is the PRUZBUL? All Tosfos argues they can be the same because we just saw Mishnah Beis says, Mal Balamashkin, Masa Beis, that Moses Shtarois of Lebesen ain't Mishamtin. And it is only in Mishnah Gimel that the Mishnah says, PRUZBUL is at the corner of Hillel. So obviously, Moses Shtarois of Lebesen is not at the corner of PRUZBUL, of Hillel. So Rashi says the one and the same. Taisa says that cannot be. Trei mileninu. Let's have a look at the Ritva. And the Ritva's interpretation of Rashi is, Rashi doesn't mean to say that they are the same. Ritva and Malchus, on the spot, if we can have the Ritva. If not, I'll just explain what the Ritva says. I assume you check the Ritva because it is one of the fundamental sources. Moisés Teroisev Lebeisen Perush Rashi, Hainu PRUZBUL. Veikshi all of B'Taisvis. Sharei b'Mishnah Mesechel Shvius. Two different things. Here we are. I just saw it on the screen. Moisés Teroisev Lebeisen. Here we are. Trei mileninu. Elo vadai kol Moisés Teroisev mamish midurai seine mishamet nogish v'oimed. Okay. So the Ritva explains what Rashi means to say is Hillel is a takana which is based on a previous din of Moisés Teroisev Lebeis. So the takana of PRUZBUL contains two gewaltige chidushim. I would like to go over to the Rambam Perik Tes of HaLACHA B'Yovel, the way the Rambam describes the halacha of Moisés Teroisev Lebeis. So all the halachas of Shmitas Chacham and PRUZBUL and Rambam are in Perik Tes. So when the Rambam brings the din of Moisés Teroisev Lebeis, here we are. We scroll down. I think it's HaLacha Tet Zayin or HaLacha Yud Zayin.
Okay, we're gonna have to go to the to your Pesach. We're gonna not sure we have all of it, so if you can find us the Rambam in Tes Zayin. Take a second if the Rav can go ahead.
Yeah, so I will explain and we'll see it on the screen. The Rambam says Moisés Teroisev Lebeis actually comes to the basin with a folder and he puts on the basin's table his documents to prove that he lended money. And he asks the basin, will you please collect my money from my borrowers? So that, here we are. HaMoisés Teroisev Lebeis. V'omer lahem, atem gvu li choivi ze einoi nishmat. Sheneimar v'ashi yelech v'sechichu v'zeh beis din toi v'noisoi. So the Rambam says, what is a Moisés Teroisev? And he puts his documents on the table. Atu gvu li choivi ze, you will collect for me. PRUZBUL is as if he actually gave his loans to Beis Din. And the Chiddush number 2, as if he was appointed by the Beis Din to be a Shliach Beis Din to collect those monies. So PRUZBUL is a double as if. As if. He actually transferred those loans to Beis Din, which he didn't. Beis Din have no idea who the borrowers are, how many loans we're talking about, what is the sum of the money. Beis Din has no idea. So the first Chiddush in PRUZBUL is, it is defined and considered as if he was Moisés Teroisev Lebeis. Chiddush number 2, the Beis Din is not actively collecting his money. Beis Din is in no way involved. It is as if Beis Din appointed him to collect their monies. So after we see the Rambam, we go back to the Ritva and we appreciate the Ritva's Pshat and Rashi. Rashi doesn't mean to say that PRUZBUL is Moisish Teroisa V'Lebeisden. What Rashi means to say is, Moisish Teroisa V'Lebeisden in its modern version is PRUZBUL. PRUZBUL is based on the halacha of Moisish Teroisa V'Lebeisden. And when a person writes a PRUZBUL, it is as if he transferred his loans to the Beis Din, and he is collecting them for the Beis Din, and that is the gewaldige chiddush of PRUZBUL. I want to ask a fundamental question, which I was always troubled that the Achronim don't really deal with. How do we understand the din of Moisish Teroisa of the Beis Din? In the modern world, there are collection agencies. I don't know how it's defined in America, but there are companies. There are businesses collecting problematic loans. So when a person has loans and he has difficulty collecting that money for many reasons, there are companies that's their specialty, and they will analyze the worth of the loan. If it's easy to collect, then you're going to get 90 cents for a dollar. Sometimes you're going to get 40 cents for a dollar or 20 cents for a dollar. But is that part of the services Beis Din offers the tzibur? I don't think so. The duty of a Beis Din b'yesod is threefold. And let me explain, what are the duties, the obligations of Botei Din b'yesod? Number one, lo din ben adam lechaveroi, ben ish leishtoi, ben ish leshcheinoi. That is the equivalent of a civil court dealing with monetary claims between a claimant and a defendant. The second duty is the equivalent of criminal court, in which the state stands against a citizen. You broke the law. Lahavdul elef avdolos. Beis Din represents a Kodesh Baruch Hu in the entire realm of Dinei Einshim, whether it's Chilul Shabbos or Ibid Nefashos or Boyelesu Erva or any other Chayve Misa and Chayve Malkios. That is the second duty of a Beis Din. The third duty is to impose on people to observe the mitzvahs. Twice in Shas, Ksubis Peva of Chulun Kuflamet Beis, we learn, but nowhere do we find that Beis Din collects loans. Person came to Beis Din and he says, I don't have time to deal with my borrowers. So here, this is my folder. Please collect my money and let me know when you finish collecting my money. That's ridiculous. Beis Din will throw him down this flight of stairs. What are you, crazy? Our time is precious. You don't have time, you think we do? So what is Moisish Teroisa V'Lebeis Din? If it would be a Yosoim, Yad Yosoim Emanan, Yad Aniyem Anan. But Moisish Teroisa V'Lebeis Din is from the lender, not the borrower. And usually the lender is not poor, he's not a Yosim, he's not a Kotten. So how do we understand this concept of Moisish Teroisa V'Lebeis Din? Lani is the idea, and that's my interpretation. Many years before HaRav was Matakan PRUZBUL, Botei Din already became aware we have a problem. We have a problem. People don't want to lend money because they're afraid of Shvius. So it is only B'Shnas HaSheva that Beis Din let it known we are willing to collect loans, to encourage people not to be afraid to lend money. And that was way before PRUZBUL. The earliest version of the PRUZBUL was actually Moisish Teroisa V'Lebeis Din. And to encourage people not to be afraid to lend money, Beis Din offered a special service. If you can't collect your loan and you're afraid the Shvius will be Mishamet, come to Beis Din, bring us your documents, bring us your loans, and we will try to collect for you. And Maaseh Beis Din ain't Mishamet. Moisish Teroisa V'Lebeis Din Mishamet. HaRav became aware in his days that it wasn't enough. And we can't know why. Some people were embarrassed to come to Beis Din. Some people didn't trust the Beis Din. And maybe Botei Din were overwhelmed and done inundated. There were so many loans that people came that basically couldn't handle it. We don't know why. Hillel, in his time, realized Moshe Teresav Lebezen is no longer a viable solution, and therefore he was Metakel Prus. But all you need to do is sign Adam or Dayanim, and you could collect your loans on your own. That is the way I understand Moshe Teresav Lebezen. That was the forerunner of the PRUZBUL. So according to Rashi, if we learn Rashi lefi pshutoi, PRUZBUL and Moshe Teresav Lebezen are the same. Tosis rightfully argues it cannot be the same. Moshe Teresav Lebezen is Mishnah Beis. PRUZBUL starts Mishnah Gimel. The Ritva explains, PRUZBUL is as if Moshe Teresav Lebezen. I think the Rambam has a different approach than Perush Mishnah. So if we could have Perush Mishnah Rambam going back to Masechet Shvius, Perek Yud, Mishnah Beis, if we have it available. If not, I will quote the Mincha Social. Because in Mincha Social, I actually quoted the motion of the Rambam.
It's coming momentarily.
Okay, here we are. Mishnah Beis, Mosrani Lochem. Let us see where this is. No, it's Mishnah Dalet. It's Mishnah Dalet. Here we are. Mosrani Lochem. In Yonoi. Mayed ani eschem bekach vekach. Mayed ani eschem bekach vekach. This notion of the Rambam seems to indicate that it is not more than a declaration. I want to declare before you and notify you that I'm going to collect my money. Mayed ani eschem shekol choiv sheyesh li egeveno. That seems to be a new interpretation. It's not that I transfer my loans to you and I will collect as your shaliach. Mayed ani eschem bekach vekach. If this is our pshat in the Rambam, then PRUZBUL must be based on hefke, based on hefke. Not necessarily associated at all with Moshe Teresav Lebezen. The Rambam's pshat is PRUZBUL has nothing to do with Moshe Teresav Lebezen. And when the Mishnah says Moshe Rani Lochem, it's not Loshem Mesira like Kinyonim. Mesira is Moidoah, which is also called Mesira, which is a declaration. I want you to testify and be my Adam that I intend to collect my loans. I don't think that Rambam in Mishnah Torah is of the same opinion, but I do want to note an interesting ha'ara. If we go back to the Mishnah, Mosrani lechem ploini v'ploini adayonim. If we could go back to the Mishnah, there are two different gersois. Shekol choiv sheyesh li. Zeh gufoi shel PRUZBUL. Mishnah Dalet. Mosrani lechem is ploini v'ploini adayonim shemoko ploini. Shekol choiv sheyesh li. That's the lashon of the Rambam as well. However, the Tur in Simach Samach Zayin omits the shin, and the gers of the Tur is Moisa ani lochem ploini v'ploini adiyonim shebamakom ploini kol chov sheyesh li. Not shekol chov, but rather kol chov. The gers of the Rambam tolerates the pshat of the Perusha Mishnah. If we can have the Tur in Choshe Mishpat, Siman Samach Zayin, Samach Zayin, Hilchos Arvoah. Here we are.
further down, or Pesach. It's further down. Here we go. Halacha Yudalad.
This is the tour.
No, further down. V'zeh l'shoynoi, Chav Beis. V'zeh l'shoynoi. Ploni v'ploni v'ploni ad Yona Mosrani lachem kol choiv sheyesh li al ploni, not shekol choiv, kol choiv. This lashon kol choiv indicates I am moiser to you kol choiv sheyesh li. All the loans and liens that I have, I transfer to you. The lashon shekel choiv, which is the gerus of the Rambam, would tolerate the pshat. I'm just letting you know. I'm just notifying you. Shekel choiv sheyesh li, shegvenu shekel zman she'erz. Shekel choiv doesn't seem to indicate I'm transferring the loans to Beis Din. Mosrani lechem shekel choiv sheyesh li, shegvenu kol zman she'erz. However, the pshat of the Rambam is not accepted by all the poskim throughout the ages. And most of them understood like the Ritva. PRUZBUL is an extension of Moise Shterois of the Beis. So this is the basic idea of PRUZBUL. And now I want to discuss the various different formulas. And when I came online, I heard Rabbi Garisman briefly discussing, and I saw a page with a lot of PRUZBULs. So I understand you already delved into the depth of the sugi, but I want to go over it anyway. So
we skirted on the surface quite a HaRav. So please.
Okay, so there are two Gemaras: Gittin Lamed Vav Omid Beis, Gittin Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. Two different Gemaras, which cause this entire confusion. What Beis Din is authorized to administer a PRUZBUL? We go from Masechet Makis to Masechet Gittin Lamed Vav Amud Beis. Here we are. Omar Shemuel, the Gemara has an eboya. Ki hitken Hillel PRUZBUL ledorei yedetiken or ledorei alma. When Hillel saw Shenimnahu hu am melahal Weiss, was he concerned about his generation or all the generations to come? And the Gemara brings Shmuel, Toshema, the Omer Shmuel, Lo katvinen PRUZBUL ela, ibe beidine de Surah, ibe beidine de Neharadoa. The two great yeshivas in Babel in the time of Talmud Bavli were Surah and Neharadoa. So Shmuel says, you cannot write a PRUZBUL, only the greatest Botei Din. Ukigon, Beidina Didei, Kerev Ame Verev Asi, the Alima L'Afkui Memoina, Aval Kuli Al Melo. So this Gemara seems to indicate either Surah and Neharadoa or Rev Ami Verev Asi. The Rishonim explain, Rev Ame Verev Asi were in Eretz Yisrael, and they were the equivalent of Surah and Neharadoa Bebavel. Rav Ami and Rav Asi were the two giants, the great Amiruam of Eretz Yisrael, Chachmi, Surah, and Neharadoa, and Bavel, but only the greatest Beis Din could write a PRUZBUL. Let's scroll down to the bottom of the page and have a look at Tosfos. This same page, Tosfos. If we could just scroll down to the bottom of the page. The Alim Alav Kuamamayim. Rabbeinu Tam katav PRUZBUL. Ki haya omer, delo be'inen ele Beis Din choshev shebedor. Va'as kechenam eshayu mekelim rabbonen deberev ashi demastem elaya dodi. We turn one page, Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph, the Gemara says, deberev ashi. And deberev ashi means not only Rav Ashi himself, but his Talmidim, his yeshiva, his Beis Medrash. The Be'erev Ashi, Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yonason, was Moise Milei. The Beit Ravashi transferred the loans one to the other, and they did a PRUZBUL. So Rabbeinu Tam wants to prove from the Gemara Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph that you don't need the greatest Beis Din of a generation. Any Beis Din was a choshev a Beis Din lefi ador, and that's the Beit Ravashi. The Rishonim explained the Rabbeinu Tam's raya. It would be unreasonable to assume that all the Chachmei Beis HaMedrash and Rav Asi's yeshiva were as great as Rav Ami and Rav Asi. So Rabbeinu Tam says we need a Beis Din choshuv shebedoyo. However, that is the Mishnah Achroina of Rabbeinu Tam. So here we are. The last on our page. Okay, here we are. Rabbonin de Beravashi Masre Milaye Lehadode. Rabbi Yonason Mose Mele Rav Chia Baraba. They weren't in the level of Rabami Veravasi. They weren't all the Gedolei Ador. So Rabbeinu Tam says, Beis Din Choshev Shebedor. Let me explain. Rabbeinu Tam doesn't say Beis Din HaChoshev Shebedor. It's not the Beis Din that is the greatest Beis Din in a generation. It needs to be a Beis Din Choshev Lefi Ador. If we could have the Rosh and Siman Yud Gimel, the Rosh gives us some background. Rabbeinu Tam had a different opinion and then he retracted. Rabbeinu Tam in Sefer HaYosher write that the din of PRUZBUL is not noeg bisman hazeh because we don't have any botei as great as Hillel, Chachmi Surah v'Neherdoeh, or Rav Ami v'Rav Asi. So Rabbeinu Tam's original opinion was we cannot write a PRUZBUL bisman hazeh. And that is also what the Beis Yosef quotes from Sefer HaTumas. Then Rabbeinu Tam regretted what he wrote in Sefer HaYosher. And he said, all we need is a Beis Din Choshev Shebedor. Now we go over to the Rambam. Perik Tes, Rambam Perik Tes, Halacha Yud Zayin. Rambam Perik Tes, here we are. Here we are, Halacha Yud Zayin. Ein kois from PRUZBUL el Chachomim Gedolim b'Yoso, keBeis Din shel Rav Ami v'Rav Asi. This would close the door to the entire concept of PRUZBUL. We don't have Chachomim Gedolim b'Yoso like Rav Ami v'Rav Asi. However, the Kesef Mishnah comes to the rescue. And even though it doesn't seem likely, but the Kesef Mishnah says that the Rambam and Rabbeinu Tam are the same. So the Kesef Mishnah Halacha Yud Zayin deals with the Rambam's opinion. Kosev Ram Mekol Mokom Beis Din Rav Ami v'Rav Asi lav dafka. And Odin lekol Beis Din Choshev Shebedor. V'ken Kosev Tosh Rabbeinu Tam Kosev PRUZBUL Metam Zeh. Ken Kosev Rosh B'Tshuva. Ken Kosev HaRivash. And then he argues, Kei Neredas Rabbeinu, and this is a big doichak. Kei Neredas Rabbeinu Mamash HaKosav, Chachom Gedolim b'Yosef, v'lo Yisosem HaKosav, Ein Kosev PRUZBUL, Eli v'Beis Din Rav Ami v'Rav Asi. Kelishne de Gemara. So this proves that Rambam means a Beis Din Choshev, somewhat like the Beis Din of Rav Ami and Rav Asi in their time. It's a doichak. But the Kesef Mishnah wanted to reconcile Rabbeinu Tam with the Rambam. So up to this point, we have two opinions. Rav Ami v'Rav Asi dafka, and we cannot write a PRUZBUL bisman hazeh. Kesef Mishnah's interpretation of the Rambam, Rabbeinu Tam, Beis Din Choshev lefi ador. The Rosh disagrees, and the Rosh writes any Beis Din. Siman Yud Gimel. Perik Dalet Mesechet Gittin. If we can have the Rosh on the screen, okay. If not, it's also okay. So the Rosh writes any Beis Din. Let's have a look. Let's go directly to the Shulchan Aruch. Samach Zayin, Sif Yud Ches. Let's go directly to
We have that in the master. You can go to the, I think you can go to the master Pesach. So
Tama
there.
in Steve Yudches.
Let's look in the master. Because this is going slower today.
So the Shulchan Aruch is a gewaltige Chiddush, and it's a bit strange. He does not follow in the footsteps of the Rambam as he always does. And the Lashon of the Shulchan Aruch does not coincide with the Rambam. Where does it come from? Samach Zayin Sif Yudches.
Go ahead, Pesach, keep on going.
We need to fly forward. Sif Yudches.
There we go.
Oh, here we go. He doesn't write Beis Nechoshev Shebedoyer. Beis Nechoshev. Shloisha B'kiyam B'din. They need to be Talmidei Chachamim. They know the halachas of PRUZBUL. They know about Shemitah. That's new. That's not in the Rambam. It's not in Tosfos. Where does this come from? Sefer HaTfilus. And for some reason, the Beis Yosef doesn't quote the Rambam, but he quotes Sefer HaTfilus. But he does write Beis Nechoshev, Talmidei Chachamim, and it must be a Beis that many people follow and many people adhere to. The Ramo writes, Yesh voices in the Kohen PRUZBUL, but called door. That's the opinion of the Rosh. Nereli di Yesh Loko, Bisman Hansen. So the Ramo writes any Beis Din. Do we necessarily need a Beis Din? Doesn't need to be a Beis Nechoshev, but it needs to be a Beis Din. Only the Ritva writes, Gimel Edyotis, Ritva Lamed Zayin on the base. In Minchas Osher, Simen Samach Aleph, Minchas Osher Shvius. I brought the Radbaz. The Radbaz says, even according to the Rosh, we need Talmidei Chachamim. Jan's just 3 people. The Mavit writes, you don't need Beis Nechoshev Shebedoyer, but they need to be the Beis Din in town. And if there's Ba'oiso Ir Gedoyle Mehem, they can't write a PRUZBUL. So what would we do in New York or in Yerushalayim? Not in Stockholm, Copenhagen, Durban, Australia, in these huge mega cities where there are hundreds of keheles and dozens of Botei Din. How could we ever know that Ein Godol Mehem Ba'ir? That's the opinion of the Mavit in the Rosh. So this is a bit complicated. So I think that Shlomo explained, I was amazed to see that page with dozens of PRUZBULs. I would like to have that page, Shlomo.
Rav Pesach, go to work. Rav Pesach found this page.
Okay, send it to me in email. But the 2 basic formulas are the Chikrei Leiv, HaRav Chazan, that was one of the greatest Sephardi authorities going back 200 years. And the PRUZBUL of the Chikrei Leiv is Eidim, not the Beis Din, but rather Eidim. Do you have the Chikrei Leiv PRUZBUL, which is formulated Eidim?
Is that both Dinim and
No, just here. Lefaneinu Eidim Achasumim Mato. Do you notice that 3 Sephardi Rabbonim are signed on this PRUZBUL?
Yeah.
That is the Sephardi PRUZBUL. Formulated by the Chikrei Leiv, was one of the greatest Gedolim in Yerushalayim 200 years ago. The Ashkenazi PRUZBUL is the one that the Reb Shmuel Salant formulated. And that is what we call the Ashkenazi PRUZBUL, which is Dayonim. B'moisef Tloso Yasivno. B'moisef Tloso is Dayonim.
Let's find Ashkenazi Rav Pesach. Go to the Ashkenazi PRUZBUL.
Most of the PRUZBULs on your sheet probably are the Ashkenazi ones. B'moisef Tloso, that is the PRUZBUL of Beis Din.
No, let's go back to the PRUZBULs. Here we go.
B'moisef Tloso Beidine Kechod Havino. It's not coincidence that the Sephardim use the Eidim And the Ashkenazim use the Beis Din. Because according to the Yosef, you need a Beis Din Choshuv, Talmidei Chachamim, accepted by many people. So you can't just take 3 young light and have them sign a PRUZBUL. It isn't valid. It doesn't mean anything. You need a Beis Din Choshuv, Shehim Chum Rabem Aleihem. That is why we prefer having a PRUZBUL in which Eidim testify that this person transferred his loans to a Beis Din Choshuv. Ashkenazim, on the other hand, according to the Rama, call Beis Din. 3 people are a Beis Din. The Ritva says even 3 idiotas. But it still is a problem. It still is a problem because so many Rishonim maintain you need a Beis Din Choshuv. Rambam, Rabbeinu Tam, Mabit, even according to the Rosh. The Radbaz says, even according to the Ramo, you need at least Talmidei Chachamim. So what do? Let me make a general comment. Shemitah B'zman HaSeder Rabbanan. All the PRUZBULs are kosher b'di'evet. All of them are okay. And the Achronim are very makel by PRUZBUL. You know, the major poskim in the last 200 years, I think were, after, between the Mogen Avraham and the Mishnah Brura, who are the greatest poskim in the Achronim? The codifiers of Shulchan Aruch. The Graz, Chayodom, HaShulchan, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, up to the Mishnah Brura. HaShulchan was a contemporary of the Mishnah Brura. Both the Graz, Shulchan Aruch HaRav, and Kitzur Shulchan Aruch say you could write a PRUZBUL for Gimel Adyoitis. The only source in the Rishonim that would be valid is the Ritva, but that's what they pass. Chayodom goes to a greater extreme, and the Chayodom says, you could write a PRUZBUL beinoi lebeinatzmoi, without Dayonim, without Eidim. That's a Gevaldige Kulam. So the tradition of halacha is to be makel. But nevertheless, let us try to examine what would the best PRUZBUL be. When I connected, Reb Shlomo had a PRUZBUL, which is both. That's Rav Elyashiv's PRUZBUL. That is a Hamtzoah of Rav Elyashiv. Could we see that one again? Reb Shlomo, you discussed it when I connected.
Yes. For Pesach, I'm going to try to put it on, the one that has both Eidim and Dayonim.
I don't think that's the newest PRUZBUL, and that's Rav Elyashiv's PRUZBUL. So Rav Elyashiv wanted to solve a problem. On one hand,
for Pesach?
I'm looking for it.
No, you were just there. The page that you just had. You don't have to look for it specifically. It was on the page.
Yeah,
And
open that page and I'll identify it immediately. So Rav Elyashiv's Hamtzoah is this.
I think the one in the upper right, the one you had in the box there, I think that was a both one. No, the one you had there before.
You wouldn't see my finger, would you?
No, but we're if you, there you go. I think
Here.
this one. Freeze it here.
Yeah, yes. אנחנו חסום מעטו מאשרים בזה, כי עושה לקדמנו, and that seems to be Eidim. ואם אין מועיל למסיר אלא לפני בייס דין, הרי אני מויסר לפניכם שכל חפש יש לי שגוון את כל זמן שיצא, and you're going to be a base din. Many Rishonim maintain that the PRUZBUL must be in the presence of a base din. If we could go over to the Yerushalmi, that'll be helpful, but I doubt we could. So the Yerushalmi says you could write a PRUZBUL, Afilahem Nesunim Beromi, and there are 2 interpretations in the Rishonim. What is in Rome? Some Rishonim say your documents are in Rome. Others say no, the base din is in Rome.
Can you give us the site?
Many Rishonim maintain that the PRUZBUL must be signed in the presence of a basin. And in their opinion, you can't come before Adam and declare before the Adam, I'm going to give my loans to a basin that sits elsewhere. No. You must be in the presence of a basin. So that is why Rav Yosef writes, on one hand, we want a basin choshev. So we prefer the Sephardi PRUZBUL, which is Adam. On the other hand, if we need the presence of a basin, I want you to be basin. Why don't I like this PRUZBUL? Let me humbly explain. You know, I was zeicha to a very special relationship with Rav Yosef, to the extent sometimes when a shaila came before him, he referred it to me and asked me to write a tshuva and present it to him. All the shailas that came that regarded the Koisel HaMaravi, I mentioned this humbly. Rav Yosef said, the Koisel belongs to everyone. So we need a Rav that is accepted by everyone. And the shailas that regarded the Koisel HaMaravi, Rav Yosef sent to me, and he asked me to write a tshuva and present it to him. I was greatly honored by that, covered. So,
I assume Rav's referring to the security cameras. Is that the shaila?
no, many, they wanted to expand the shul in the Koisel HaMakura, and the SS Noshim was to be expanded on the expense of the men's section. There were various different questions about the Koisel proper, which Rav Yosef referred to me, but that was just a side comment. Let's not get into it. We're talking about PRUZBUL. I don't have a good feeling in devising new shtoras shelo yisharum avuseinu. From the days of the Mishnah till our days is 2,000 years that people have been writing PRUZBULs. Are we smarter and better than all our predecessors? Did this not occur to any of the thousands of Gedolim that learned the halachas of Shmitas Ksafim? Are we wiser, smarter, better than they all were? So we just saw tens of PRUZBULs. The very first formula is in the Mishnah. Ze gufo shel PRUZBUL. Adiyonam chois melamata oho Edom. Nobody thought that the same people could be both Dayonim and Edom. Now, this is not an argument of substance, but it's just a feeling. I feel uncomfortable with a totally new formula, which none of the Gedolim of yore came up with. And it doesn't really solve the problem, because if we combine these two opinions, you need a basin choshev, and you need to prepare before the basin, then this shtar still falls short. Because you're chasming before three simpletons, three ungalai, three people, three of your friends in shul, and you say either Edom or basin, but they're not a basin choshev. So we still have a problem. This new formula only solves 50% of the problem, but not more than that. Because if you need to appear, you need the presence of a basin, and you also need a basin choshev, then you didn't solve the problem. And therefore, let me give you my priorities, and this is what our basin will publicize tomorrow. The best is if a person actually could come before a basin choshev. Our basin probably is a basin choshev. It's not the most important basin, but many rely on our basin. So if you could actually come before a basin, that's priority one. Priority number two, send the shaliach. So in Minchas Osho, Simachov Aleph, I brought the opinion of the Mahari Kash. Mahari Kaslo lived almost 500 years ago. Charles Chuvas Poale Yankov, he also has a Goas and Choshe Mishpot. he says there is no shlichus by PRUZBUL. But that's a das yochid. Why wouldn't there be shlichus? There must be shlichus because we sign a PRUZBUL in the name of our wives and our children that are no longer ktanim, and that is based on shlichus. The minig is that women don't come and sign a PRUZBUL, a husband signs for his wife. That's shlichus. So you could send a shliach to Beis Din. Now the shliach could be the secretary of the Beis Din. Call him, ask him to write a PRUZBUL in your name, and you could present that PRUZBUL ali de shliach for a Beis Din choshuv. Priority number one, if you could come yourself before the Beis Din choshuv. Doesn't mean the only Beis Din choshuv. Beis Din choshuv. Beis Din, which is recognized, many people adhere to their psukim. Priority number one, if you could come yourself. Priority number two, you could send the shliach. For a further elaboration, check Minchas Osher Shviya Simen Chof Aleph Oisei. Priority number three, Ashkenazim, you could write a PRUZBUL of Dayanim, but at least try to see to it that the three people know the halachas of PRUZBUL, they know about Shemitah Sofim. If not, better PRUZBUL Eidim. If you're a Sephardi, you need a PRUZBUL Shel Eidim, because you need to transfer those loans to a Beis Din choshuv. And you testify before the Eidim, you declare before the Eidim, I want to transfer my loans to Beis Din Pliny, Shebamokam Pliny, which is a Beis Din choshuv. I once again say, all the PRUZBULim are kosher. And that entire page you saw before, even without analyzing them, Yachronim are meikel b'dinei PRUZBUL. Just an interesting question I was asked many times, and I will leave you with the question. What happens if the Malv is an Ashkenazi and the Loiv is a Sephardi? And the Malva writes a PRUZBUL Shel Dayanim without a Beis Din choshuv. The Loiva says, I'm a Sephardi. According to my halacha, the Beis Yosef, only a Beis Din choshuv could administer a PRUZBUL. Your PRUZBUL is not a Beis Din choshuv, so I don't want to pay the loan. So what would we say about that? The Loiva is a Sephardi. He follows in the footsteps of the Beis Yosef. You need a Beis Din choshuv she'im kum rabim aleihem. You can't just take three Yungalite, three Balabatim and write a PRUZBUL. There must be an accepted and recognized authority. The Malva says, I'm an Ashkenazi. You can't dictate to me what type of a PRUZBUL to write. This would be an interesting question. I'll give you my psak just very briefly, and you could analyze this on your own. I think PRUZBUL and Dina Shmitzah Sofim start with a Malva, and only from the Malva it goes on the way. Brings us back to our previous year. Both the mitzvahs and the mitzvahs loises are about the Malva. Shomoit kol bal mashe yodoi lo yigois esrei eyu. Yes, the loiv is poto, but the reason the loiv doesn't have to pay is because the Malva has no right to demand, and because the Malva doesn't have the right to collect. That is why the loiva is poto from paying. It all starts with the Malva, with the lender, not with the borrower. So if the Malva says, from my point of view as an Ashkenazi, I have a proper PRUZBUL, and I do not need to forgive and forego this loan, then the loiva has to pay. So it all depends on the Malva, and the loiva posol Malva gorir. That is my opinion. So my dear friends, I hope today's shir was interesting, and we tried to start off from the Mishnah, explain what is the essence of a PRUZBUL, and we got into the details, Machlokes Shulchan Aruch Haramo, Rambam Rosh, the various different opinions, different formulas, different nuskois of PRUZBUL. I just want to
Silas, can we ask one quick one or two Silas? Mr. Rhodes Hanhug here with Kupas Gemachim and Kupas Tzedakah. Both sides need PRUZBUL.
So let me tell you my general approach, and I also wrote this in HSukkah. I think bank loans don't necessitate a PRUZBUL. If you have a check, you don't need a PRUZBUL. Your machim probably don't need a PRUZBUL. However, because a PRUZBUL is neither a tirchi yisera nor an expense, I think you should write a PRUZBUL. The PRUZBUL has become part of our ritual once in 7 years. We write a PRUZBUL for Makayim the Takon of HaLACHA. So even though my opinion in many of the shilas is you don't really need a PRUZBUL, I say, why not be on the safe side? Why not write a PRUZBUL? Why not? So 7 years ago, B'leil Rosh Hashanah, when I spoke to Michael, I said, we have a mitzvah Shmitas Sofim. And there are so many sources, both in Bavli and in Yerushalmi, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is makayim the mitzvahs of the Torah. And I said, Rabbeinu Shalom, we owe you a great many loans, and we are deeply indebted. So please, you should also be makayim the mitzvah Shmitas Sofim. And just like we are required to forego and forgive, please do the same. Hillel gave us a PRUZBUL, but he didn't give you a PRUZBUL. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have a PRUZBUL to circumvent the mitzvah of forgiving and forgoing loans. We owe HaKadosh Baruch Hu everything, our lives, our prognosis. The Chofetz Chaim has a beautiful mashal. All the mishalim of the Chofetz Chaim are so appealing and are so beautiful. Zochreinu l'chaim, melech chofetz b'chaim, v'chozveinu b'sefer ha'chaim, lemancho elokim chaim. What does it mean, lemancho? So the Chofetz Chaim said a mashal. Pliny Almighty, Mr. A, B, and C, was poor, and he owed money to the entire town. Everybody was after him. He borrowed money from whoever he could, from the Rav and the Gab and the Shamis, and from everyone. And he once complained to his wife, and he said, my life is miserable. I can't go on in the street. I go in shul, people are after me. I go on the street, people are chasing me. I owe money to everyone. I just don't know what to do. And his wife wanted to comfort him and said, there's something nice about it. Try to be positive. And he asked, how can I be positive? It's miserable. She says, everybody in this town 3 times a day, when he davens refu'enu, they all have you in mind. And they all daven that you should be well, you should have arichas yonam v'shonim, because chas v'shonim, if something happens to you, they're going to lose their money. So, try to be positive. Look at the nice side of it. Everybody in this town has you in mind every day when he davens refu'enu. So the Chofetz Chaim says, we turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we say, Zochreinu l'chaim, melech chofetz b'chaim, v'chozveinu b'sefer l'chaim, it's for you. We owe you so much, and we sure you want to collect. You expect us to pay at some stage, sometime. So please, Rabbeinu Shalom, give us arichas yonam v'shonim, give us good health, and we hope at some stage we're going to get there. And we're going to try to pay our loans. So once in 7 years, we have a mitzvah of forgiving and foregoing, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu has that very same mitzvah. We have a PRUZBUL, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't. So we turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, we are supposed to forgive our loans. Please do the same. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a keil, a moichel, a v'salech. So I want to wish you all, after another year of Talmud Torah, it's a pleasure and it's a privilege for me. I would admit it's a burden. It's a burden, but it's one of those beautiful burdens that we carry. And I thank you for giving me the chus to be Malbitz Torah every Sunday night, every Sunday afternoon. And I wish you all ksiva v'chasima tov. It should be a good year of good health, arichas yonim v'shonim, Shefa Rav, Tichle Shona Bekirah Leiseyu, We knew a lot of tragedy this past year. Tichle Shana v'kirle seil, Tochel Shana v'berchaseu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help us. Yazleinu leman kvoi shemoi. We should be able to learn Torah and teach Torah this entire year. B'simcha v'betur leva. To all of you, and I hope to see you Ben Kesel also. A good gebench.
Amen.